The huge crystal room of the Galactic Council was filled with strange sounds from thousands of different alien voices. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho from Earth stood in the center, looking very small next to the giant reptile creatures called Vorthak, and the floating balls of light that were the Nexus collective beings. The room was so big that Kim Tae-ho felt like an ant in a stadium. Above him floated creatures that looked like jellyfish made of pure energy. To his left stood bird-like aliens with metal feathers that clicked when they moved. To his right were massive slug creatures that left shiny trails wherever they went. Captain Park Min-ho stood behind the ambassador wearing his simple green military uniform. No fancy armor like the aliens had, no glowing weapons that could destroy planets, just basic Earth gear that looked like toys compared to what everyone else was carrying. The council speaker was the strangest creature Kim Tae-ho had ever seen. It looked like a walking tree, but with dozens of eyes growing from its branches. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind blowing through leaves. The humans from the planet Earth request military protection status, the council speaker announced. To the massive crowd, the sound that filled the room was not quite laughter, but it was close. The Vorthak made deep rumbling sounds. The energy beings flickered faster, which seemed to be their way of showing amusement. The bird creatures made high-pitched whistling noises. Even the slug aliens made wet, gurgling sounds that might have been funny to them. Captain Park looked around at all the aliens pointing at him with claws, tentacles, and body parts that humans did not have names for. Some had 6 arms. Others had tentacles instead of legs. A few were just floating heads with energy bodies. "This tiny creature is their warrior," screeched a bird alien whose wings were made of some kind of shiny metal. "My babies are bigger than this human." The biggest Vorthak in the room was General Krixtar, who stood 12 feet tall. His scales were dark green and covered with scars from 100 battles. Each scale was as big as a human hand and looked like it could stop bullets. His eyes glowed red, and when he smiled, everyone could see teeth as long as knives. General Krixtar leaned forward, making the floor shake under his weight. "Humans, your species is weak. Your soldiers are small like children. Your weapons are old and useless. We Vorthak have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed entire star systems. What can your tiny army possibly do against real warriors?" Kim Tae-ho stayed calm, even though he was surrounded by creatures that could crush him without trying. "We have 15,000 soldiers ready for any mission. They have very special training." This made the aliens laugh even harder. The energy beings started flashing different colors, which seemed to be their way of showing they thought something was very funny. A creature that looked like a giant spider with too many legs clicked its mouth parts together. 15,000 gurgled a slug creature that was as big as a truck. "We send 1 million warriors just to capture a single moon. Your numbers are pathetic." More laughter echoed through the crystal chamber. The sound bounced off the walls and came back even louder. Some aliens were laughing so hard they started crying. Others were making sounds that might have been applause, but sounded more like rocks falling down a mountain. Captain Park stepped forward and looked up at the towering General Krixtar without showing any fear. "Sir, permission to speak to these beings." Ambassador Kim Tae-ho nodded. Park looked around the room at all the massive creatures staring down at him. "We do not need 1 million soldiers. We only need the right soldiers in the right place at the right time." A creature that looked like a giant insect with armor plating clicked its jaws together. The sound was like someone snapping thick sticks. "Right soldiers, you say? You mean these green berets that your species talks about? What makes them special? Do they have extra arms like us? Do they have poison sacs? Do they have energy shields that can stop plasma blasts?" "No." Park replied in a quiet voice that somehow carried across the huge room. "They just have very good training." The chamber exploded with more alien laughter. The sound was so loud that the crystal walls started to vibrate. Some of the smaller aliens had to cover their hearing organs because the noise was too much. A floating Creature made of what looked like liquid metal spoke in a voice like grinding gears. Training. You think training can defeat plasma cannons that melt mountains. You think training can break through shields that have never been penetrated. You think training can stand against warriors who can survive in the vacuum of space. Though, Council Speaker raised one of its branch arms to quiet the crowd, its dozens of eyes all focused on the human delegation. Very well, humans. We will test your warriors. The Zephyrian system is under attack by space pirates right now. 3 planets and 7 moons are in danger. Millions of innocent civilians are waiting to be saved or killed. The speaker paused, and all its eyes seemed to glow brighter. Send your tiny army to fight these pirates. When you fail completely, you will accept our protection and pay us tribute. Like all the other weak species, Kim Tae-ho bowed politely. We accept this challenge. As the formal meeting ended, aliens continued making fun of the humans. They talked about their plasma weapons that could destroy entire cities with one shot. They bragged about their soldiers who could tear through metal with their bare claws. They showed off their spaceships that were as big as human cities. What can 15,000 tiny humans do against real warriors? Laughed General Crix Tar to his friends. This will be the shortest military operation in galactic history. Captain Park activated his communication device as they walked out of the crystal chamber. Control, this is Falcon. The mission is approved. Tell the team we have work to do. Back on Earth in a secret military base that did not appear on any maps, Colonel Lee Sang-min received the message. Around him sat the most dangerous soldiers humanity had ever created. These were not regular army troops. These were Green Berets who had trained for years to do impossible things. Staff Sergeant Choi Bo-ram was cleaning her rifle with movements so smooth they looked like a dance. Every part of the weapon was checked and rechecked until it was perfect. Master Sergeant Kim Dong-woo was studying star charts of the Zephyrian system, looking for weaknesses that others might miss. Lieutenant Park Soo-jin looked up from her computer screen full of tactical information. Sir, the intelligence reports show these pirates have advanced shields and energy weapons. Our regular bullets might not be able to penetrate their defenses. Colonel Lee smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found prey. That is exactly why we do not fight their ships, Lieutenant. We fight much smarter than that. He stood up and looked around the room at his soldiers. These men and women had volunteered for the most dangerous missions on Earth. They had trained in jungles and mountains and deserts. They had learned to survive in places where other people would die in hours. Load up, everyone. We are going to teach some aliens about what humans call asymmetric warfare. The aliens in the Galactic Council had made their first big mistake. They measured strength by counting weapons and soldiers. They thought bigger was always better. They had never fought an enemy that could appear from nowhere, turn their own technology against them, and disappear back into shadows they thought were empty. They had never fought humans who had spent hundreds of years learning how to make impossible things possible with nothing but skill, courage, and the absolute refusal to give up no matter what. As the human transport ships prepared to leave, Earth carrying their small army to a star system far away, the Galactic Council continued making jokes about the weak little humans and their pathetic soldiers. They would not be laughing much longer. The Green Berets were coming, and they were about to teach the galaxy that sometimes the smallest armies hit the hardest. The human fleet came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian system, and immediately every alien-watching station started broadcasting jokes across the galaxy. 3 small ships, barely the size of cargo haulers by galactic standards, were carrying what the aliens called a laughably tiny army. Colonel Lee Sang-min stood on the bridge of the lead ship watching the tactical display show him everything he needed to know about their enemy. 7 pirate ships, each one big enough to destroy. Planets hung in space like metal mountains. Each ship was longer than the tallest buildings on Earth and covered with enough weapons to fight a war. The pirates had been in the system for 3 weeks now. They had already attacked two of the smaller moons and were demanding tribute from the main planets. Millions of innocent people were hiding in their homes waiting for help that every species in the galaxy said would never come. Communications specialist Kim Ha-na looked up from her station with a worried expression. "Sir, we are receiving transmissions from the pirate fleet. They are also laughing at us." The main screen flickered and showed the ugliest creature Colonel Lee had ever seen. It had too many teeth that were all different sizes and scars covering every inch of its armored skin. Its eyes glowed yellow, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Humans, I am Warlord Grex-Tar, the terror of 50 star systems. Your pathetic Galactic Council has sent babies to fight the greatest pirate fleet in this sector. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick instead of slow and painful." Colonel Lee stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "This is Colonel Lee of Earth Special Forces. You have exactly 30 minutes to release all civilian prisoners and surrender your vessels to us." Warlord Grex-Tar threw back his massive head and laughed so hard that spit flew from his mouth. 30 minutes, little human child. I have weapons that can crack moons in half like eggs. My shields have never been broken by any weapon in the galaxy. My warriors have conquered 50 star systems and killed billions of enemies. What can your tiny toy ships possibly do to harm me? Colonel Lee looked directly into the alien's glowing eyes. "You will find out in 29 minutes. Then he cut off the transmission. Captain Park Min-ho approached, wearing his full combat gear and carrying weapons that looked simple compared to alien technology. Behind him came his team leaders, all wearing the same basic equipment that had made the Galactic Council laugh. "Sir, our reconnaissance drones are in position. We have complete intelligence on all their ship layouts and defensive positions." The tactical display showed the 7 pirate ships in detail. Each one was a fortress of metal and energy, with shields that could stop anything the humans had if they tried to fight the normal way. The ships bristled with weapons that could destroy cities and were crewed by thousands of warriors from dozens of different species. Sergeant Choi Bo-ram studied the display with the eyes of someone who had been trained to find weaknesses where others saw only strength. "Captain, their patrol patterns show they are overconfident. They are not expecting any real resistance from us." Master Sergeant Kim Dong-woo pointed to specific areas on the display. "Look at this, sir. They have anchored their command ship close to the gas giant moon. That limits their ability to move quickly. Classic mistake of someone who thinks they are too powerful to be threatened." Colonel Lee nodded as he studied the enemy positions. "Remember, everyone, we are not here to destroy their ships. We are here to save innocent civilians and stop these pirates from hurting anyone else. Soo-jin, your team takes the moon bases. Bo-ram, you get the orbital stations. Dong-woo, you have the most important job, which is the command ship itself." Lieutenant Park Soo-jin checked her equipment one more time. "Sir, what about their energy shields and plasma weapons that can supposedly destroy anything?" The colonel smiled, but it was the cold smile of a hunter who had found the perfect trap. "Pirates are criminals, not real soldiers, Soo-jin. They depend on fear and overwhelming force to win. They have never fought anyone who could think 3 steps ahead of them." 28 minutes later, the human ships moved forward toward the massive pirate fleet. The pirates watched with amusement as the tiny vessels approached their floating fortresses. It looked like insects trying to attack eagles. Warlord reported a pirate technician whose species looked like a cross between a lizard and a robot. "The humans are launching small craft from their ships, dozens of them. They appear to be simple transport shuttles." Warlord. Grex-Tar leaned back in his command throne, which was made from the bones of his enemies. "Let the foolish humans come closer. Our point defense systems will destroy them like insects flying into fire." What the pirates did not know was that those transport shuttles were carrying the most dangerous soldiers in human space. Each small craft held a team of Green Berets who had trained for exactly this kind of impossible mission. While alien armies relied on massive frontal attacks, humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of surgical strikes. The first human shuttle approached the outermost pirate vessel, moving in what looked like a straight attack run. Point defense. Turrets swiveled to target the small craft and energy beams lanced out like lightning. The shuttle exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up space. "One down already," laughed a pirate gunner whose job was to destroy small targets. "These humans are even weaker than we thought. This will be easier than destroying cargo ships." But the explosion happened exactly where Sergeant Choi Bo-Ram wanted it to happen. The electromagnetic pulse from their decoy shuttle overloaded reactor had shut down the point defense grid for exactly 47 seconds. That was long enough for her real infiltration craft to slip through the gap in the defenses and attach itself to the ship hull like a metal tick. "Breaching in 3, 2, 1, Bo-Ram whispered into her communication device as her team cut through the hull with plasma torches that burned hotter than stars. They had studied pirate ship designs for weeks before the mission. They knew exactly where to enter, exactly which corridors to use, and exactly where all the critical systems were located. The pirates never saw them coming because they were looking in the wrong direction. All across the pirate fleet, similar scenes were happening at the same time. Human special forces were not trying to fight the pirates' strength against strength. Instead, they were striking at weaknesses that the aliens did not even know they had. While the pirates focused on their mighty weapons and unbreakable shields, humans were slipping inside their ships like ghosts made of metal and determination. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the smallest armies hit the hardest because they hit exactly where it hurts the most. Inside the pirate ship called Death's Claw, Sergeant Choi Bo-Ram and her team moved through the maintenance tunnels like shadows that had learned to walk. The pirates had built their ships to look scary with huge corridors and massive weapon systems, but they had never thought that enemies might use their own ship design against them. "Bo-Ram to control," she whispered into her throat microphone so quietly that even someone standing next to her might not hear. "We are at Junction 7. Moving toward the reactor core now." 3 levels below her, the pirates were still celebrating and watching their sensors as more human shuttles exploded against their shields. They had no idea that each destroyed craft had delivered its cargo of elite soldiers directly onto their ships like deadly packages. Lieutenant Park Soo-jin was crouched inside the air circulation system of the moon base on Zephyrian Prime. Through the metal grate, she could see guards that looked like giant lizards walking on 2 legs. They carried energy rifles that could punch holes through tank armor, but they were all looking outward, watching for an attack that would never come the way they expected. Soo-jin to all teams, she broadcast on channels that the aliens could not detect. "Remember, we are not here to fight fair. We are here to win and save innocent people." Her explosives expert, Corporal Kim Jae-won, had already placed charges on the base power grid. One signal from Soo-jin and the entire facility would go completely dark. In darkness, humans had advantages that most alien species had never even heard of. Meanwhile, Master Sergeant Kim Dong-woo was having the adventure of a lifetime in the worst possible way. He and his team had gotten inside Warlord Grextar Command, ship through the waste disposal system. It was not glorious, but it worked perfectly. "Dong-woo to Colonel," he reported as his team reached the engineering section without being detected. "We are in position. Their computer systems are more primitive than we expected. Jin-ho can break into them in just a few minutes." Specialist. Park Jin-ho was already connecting his modified computer tablet to the ship network. The pirates used quantum encryption that was supposed to be unbreakable, but they had never met human hackers who had learned to think in ways that alien minds could not predict. Back on the human command ship, Colonel Lee watched the tactical display as his teams moved into their final positions. To anyone watching from outside, it looked like the humans were losing badly. Their shuttles were being destroyed, their ships were pulling back, and the pirates were celebrating their easy victory. "Sir," reported Kim Ha-na from the communications station, "we are receiving another transmission from Warlord Grextar. He wants to brag about defeating us. Put him on the main screen." Warlord Grextar appeared again, his scarred face twisted in cruel happiness. Human Colonel, your pathetic attack has failed completely. Your shuttles burn in space like falling stars. Soon my warriors will board your ships and show you what real soldiers can do to weaklings. Colonel Lee checked his watch and smiled calmly. Warlord, do you know what the difference is between a regular army and special forces? The alien leaned forward with interest. Tell me before you die, tiny human. A regular army fights the enemy where they are strongest. Special forces fight them where they do not expect it. Lee raised his hand. Your 30 minutes are finished. The colonel dropped his hand like he was starting a race. Across the entire pirate fleet, chaos erupted at exactly the same moment. Sergeant Choi Boram charges detonated in the reactor core of Death's Claw, not to destroy the ship, but to create a controlled overload that shut down all power to weapons and shields. In the sudden darkness, her team moved like hunting wolves with night vision equipment that turned black corridors into their personal hunting ground. Lieutenant Park Soo-jin's signal sent the moon base into total blackout. The massive alien guards suddenly found themselves stumbling around blind, while small, fast humans with perfect night vision moved among them like deadly ghosts. Energy rifles that could destroy buildings were useless if you could not see your target. Master Sergeant Kim Dong-woo Hacker had done something the pirates thought was impossible. He had turned their own ships against them. Airlock doors opened to the vacuum of space in sections that contained only pirates. Gravity systems reversed, sending alien warriors crashing into ceilings. Life support shut down in military areas while staying active in sections where civilian prisoners were being held. What is happening to my ships? Warlord Grextar roared, as his command vessel shuddered around him. Emergency lights flickered red while his crew ran in panic through corridors that had become death traps. Sir, screamed his weapons officer, all our vessels are going dark. The humans are inside them somehow. How did they get past our shields and armor? The warlord finally understood what was happening. While he had been watching the sky for an enemy fleet, the real attack had come from inside his own ships. The humans had not tried to overpower his vessels with bigger weapons. They had infiltrated them like a virus. Alert all ships, he commanded. Repel boarders. Find these humans and kill them all. But it was already too late. The Green Berets had completed their primary objectives in less than 30 minutes. They had not come to capture the pirate ships. They had come to save civilian hostages and neutralize the threat to innocent people. Every pirate vessel was now floating helpless in space with weapons offline, communications jammed, and their crews either unconscious or trapped. In 30 minutes, 15,000 human Special Forces soldiers had accomplished what the galaxy thought was completely impossible. They had defeated a pirate fleet that had terrorized entire star systems for years. The mockery from alien species was about to turn into shocked silence. Space around the Zephyrian system was filled with crippled pirate ships that looked undamaged from the outside but were completely helpless on the inside. The most feared pirates in this sector had been neutralized by an army that every alien species had laughed at. Warlord Grextar sat in his darkened command center, listening to reports of failure from every ship in his fleet. For the first time, in 30 years of conquest, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Fear. On the bridge of his crippled command ship, Warlord Grextar stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. 7 massive dreadnoughts, each one a floating fortress that had taken decades to build, were now dead in space. No weapons, no shields, no communications, no power. How is this possible? He whispered to himself. His voice echoed strangely in the emergency lighting of his bridge. How did such tiny creatures do this to us? His answer came from the shadows behind him. Master Sergeant. Kim Dong-woo stepped out of the darkness with his rifle pointed directly at the massive alien. The warlord spun around, reaching for his energy pistol, but stopped when he saw a dozen human weapons aimed at his head. Do not move, Dong-woo said in a calm voice that was somehow more frightening than shouting. We are not here to kill you unless you force us to. The alien pirates on the bridge froze like statues. They had never seen creatures move the way these humans did. Silent, precise, and deadly. Their own warriors were twice as big and armed with weapons that could vaporize a human, but somehow these small soldiers had appeared like ghosts. "You are just one human," Grextar snarled, showing his knife-like teeth. "I have a crew of 3,000 warriors on this ship." "Had," Dongwu corrected him. "Most of your crew is currently unconscious from sleep gas. The rest are locked in sections with no air or power. Your choice, warlord. Surrender peacefully, or we leave you here to think about your life choices." Throughout the pirate fleet, similar scenes were happening on every ship. Sergeant Choi Bo-ram had taken control of Death's Claw, with her team of 12 soldiers facing a crew of 5,000 pirates. But they had not fought 5,000 enemies at once. They had fought small groups in narrow corridors using superior training and equipment to defeat much larger numbers. Lieutenant Park Soo-jin stood in the Moonbase Command Center surrounded by alien guards who had given up fighting. The massive lizard creatures sat with their claws behind their heads while their energy weapons were safely in human hands. They had learned that fighting enemies you cannot see is impossible. Soo-jin to Colonel. She reported through her communicator. "Moonbase completely secure. All civilians are safe and unharmed. Pirate casualties are minimal, mostly unconscious or contained. Outstanding work, Lieutenant," came Colonel Lee, voice over the radio. "Dongwu, what is your status on the command ship?" "Warlord Grextar is considering early retirement, the master," Sergeant replied. "Ship is secured, crew is contained. 0 civilian casualties." Across subspace communication channels, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The monitoring stations that had been broadcasting jokes about the tiny human army had gone completely quiet. The impossible had become reality. 15,000 soldiers had defeated a fleet that outnumbered them 100 to 1. On the bridge of his command ship, Colonel Lee opened communications with the Galactic Council. The giant crystal chamber was in chaos as representatives from thousands of species tried to understand what they had just witnessed with their own sensors. "Council Speaker," Lee announced. "This is Colonel Lee of Earth Special Forces. The Zephyrian system is now secure. All pirates have been neutralized. All civilians are safe. Mission accomplished." The tree-like council speaker blinked all of its many eyes in confusion. "Colonel Lee, our sensor readings show that the pirate fleet is still intact. How can you claim victory when their ships are undamaged?" "Because intact does not mean functional," Lee replied calmly. "The ships are undamaged, but completely disabled. The pirates are alive, but contained. The civilians are free and safe. Would you like us to demonstrate our methods on a smaller scale for your education?" From across the chamber came the voice of Vorthak General Crix Tar, who had mocked the humans earlier. "This is impossible. 7 dreadnoughts cannot be defeated by shuttles and small weapons. You must be lying." Captain Park Min-ho stepped into view of the communication screen. "General, you made the same mistake that the pirates made. You assumed we would fight using your methods. What do you mean human? You build bigger guns, stronger shields, and larger armies. You fight strength against strength like animals. Humans learned long ago that the best way to win any fight is to avoid fighting fair." Park gestured to the soldiers around him. "These Green Berets did not attack the pirate fleet from the outside. They infiltrated it from within. They did not destroy the ships. They captured them. They did not kill the crews. They neutralized them." The chamber filled with confused alien voices speaking in hundreds of different languages. This was beyond their understanding. How could forces so small defeat overwhelming odds so completely? The slug-like creature that controlled 3 star systems spoke through its electronic translator. Even if this is somehow true, 15,000 soldiers cannot patrol the entire galaxy. You cannot be everywhere at once. Colonel Lee smiled with confidence. "We do not need to be everywhere, General. We just need to be where we are needed when we are needed. And now every pirate, every warlord, and every would-be conqueror in the galaxy knows one simple fact. What fact is that? If you threaten innocent civilians, you might wake up one morning to find humans already on your ship. The energy, Beings of the Nexus Collective flickered with colors that suggested worry or concern. This changes the balance of power completely. If humans can infiltrate any vessel undetected, then perhaps, interrupted the council speaker slowly, the galaxy should reconsider its position on human military capabilities. The mockery had stopped completely. The laughter had died away. Across the galaxy, alien military commanders were looking at their ship security systems with new eyes. They were wondering if their vessels were truly as secure as they had always believed. Humanity had just announced its arrival on the Galactic. Staged not with bigger weapons or stronger defenses, but with something far more dangerous: the ability to turn any enemy strength into a weakness. The power to appear anywhere at any time without warning. The Green Berets had done much more than complete a single mission. They had changed the galaxy's entire understanding of what warfare could be. Size did not matter. Numbers did not matter. Technology did not matter. What mattered was being smarter, faster, and more determined than your enemy. The aliens were learning that humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had perfected the art of winning against impossible odds. They had turned warfare into a science, and now they had brought that science to the stars. Within hours of the Zephyrian incident, subspace communication networks across the galaxy buzzed with only one topic. How had the humans done the impossible? Military commanders from 1,000 different species were demanding answers from their intelligence services. The impossible had become reality, and nobody could understand how. Admiral Kethvar of the Vorthak Empire stood in his war room staring at holographic displays of the battle. His scales, which normally showed bright, confident colors, had turned to worried browns and grays. His advisors stood around him looking just as confused. "Show me the battle again," he commanded his intelligence officer. The hologram replayed the entire engagement. 7 massive pirate vessels that were supposed to be impregnable fortresses of metal and energy had been neutralized in 30 minutes by forces that should not have been able to get past their shields, let alone disable their entire fleet. "Admiral," his aide reported nervously, "our best engineers have studied all the technical data. The pirates' shields were never penetrated by weapons fire. Their hulls show almost no damage. Yet every single system was shut down at exactly the same time." "From the inside," Kethvar muttered to himself. Somehow, they got inside every ship. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening in war rooms and command centers. The Nexus Collective energy beings pulsed with confusion as they tried to understand how physical creatures could have infiltrated what they considered perfect defenses. The insectoid hive clusters clicked and whistled as they calculated the mathematical impossibility of what they had witnessed. But it was the criminal organizations that reacted first and fastest. News spread through pirate fleets, smuggling cartels, and warlord territories like wildfire. The humans could appear anywhere at any time and turn your own ship into your prison. Captain Vexli, commander of the notorious Blood Talon pirate group, called an emergency meeting of the Outer Rim Syndicate. His species looked like armored bears, and his reputation for brutality had kept entire star systems in line for decades. "Brothers and sisters," he addressed the holographic images of other crime lords from across the galaxy. "We have a serious problem. The humans have demonstrated they can reach anyone anywhere." "Impossible," scoffed Warlord Thane Cool, whose fleet had successfully raided over 50 worlds. "No force that small can threaten our entire operation." "Tell that to Grex Tar," Vexli replied grimly. His entire fleet, 7 dreadnoughts that had never been defeated, taken by 15,000 soldiers. His crews are alive but imprisoned on their own ships. The gathering fell into uncomfortable silence. Every crime boss in the room had built their power on one simple assumption. Bigger ships and more weapons meant complete safety. If humans could neutralize any vessel from the inside, then everything had changed. "What do we actually know about these Green Berets?" asked Lady Zarneth, whose slaving operation controlled 12 star systems. Vexli activated a display showing the little intelligence they had managed to gather about human special forces. Elite soldiers trained for impossible missions, small units that work independently, specialized training that focuses on precision strikes. They do not fight armies. They eliminate specific targets with surgical precision. How do they get inside starships that are sealed and protected? Unknown. But here is what we do know for certain. They can infiltrate any vessel, disable any system, and neutralize any crew, without causing massive casualties. They are not conquerors who want to rule. They are surgeons who want to cut out problems. Meanwhile, in the legitimate military organizations, a different kind of panic was spreading. Defense ministers across the galaxy were asking very uncomfortable questions about their own security systems. General Mordak of the Hegemony Defense Forces stood before his emperor, trying to explain how everything they thought they knew about warfare had just been proven wrong. "My lord," he reported carefully, "our analysis suggests that the humans use what they call asymmetric tactics. Instead of meeting strength with strength, they identify weaknesses that others cannot see and exploit them." The emperor was a being of pure crystalline intelligence that had ruled for 3 centuries. He pulsed with irritation that made the air in the room feel electric. "Our ships have no weaknesses, General. Our defenses are mathematically perfect." "That is exactly what the pirates thought, Your Majesty. That is what we all thought until today." The implications were staggering for every major power in the galaxy. They had all built their military doctrine around the same basic principles: massive fleets, overwhelming firepower, and impenetrable defenses. The humans had just proven that all of those advantages could be neutralized by soldiers who thought completely differently. Back on Earth, Colonel Lee was receiving reports from intelligence services throughout the galaxy. Human embassies were being flooded with requests for information about Green Beret capabilities. Some civilizations wanted to hire human soldiers for protection. Others wanted to learn their training methods. A few were quietly asking about defenses against such tactics. Sir, reported communications specialist Kim Ha-na. "We are receiving over 1,000 requests for military consultation in just the last few hours. Everyone wants to know exactly how we accomplish this mission." "What are we telling them?" Captain Park Min-ho looked up from his tactical analysis reports. "The truth, sir. We tell them that we do not fight the enemy battle on their terms. We fight our own battle in their territory, using their weaknesses against them." Lieutenant Park Soo-jin joined the conversation from her debriefing station. "The psychological effect is working even better than we hoped. 3 separate pirate fleets have disbanded in the last 12 hours. They are too afraid to operate in groups large enough to be profitable." Master Sergeant Kim Dong-woo laughed grimly as he cleaned his equipment. "Fear is a force multiplier. One successful mission has done more to secure this entire region than 100 patrol ships could accomplish in years." But the most important reaction was coming from the Galactic Council itself. The same chamber that had echoed with laughter at humanity, Tiny Army now buzzed with urgent discussions about military balance and galactic security. The council speaker addressed the assembly with unusual seriousness. "Representatives, we must face a new reality that changes everything. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that fundamentally alter the strategic balance of power. From the Vorthak delegation came angry demands. We demand to know their exact methods." From the Nexus Collective came worried concerns. Such power concentrated in so few individuals creates dangerous instability. From the smaller species came hopeful questions. Perhaps the humans could help. "Protect us from larger predators." Ambassador Kim Tae-ho rose from the human delegation platform. "Honored Council Earth position remains exactly the same as before. We seek only to protect innocent civilians and maintain galactic peace. Our methods must remain classified, but our intentions are completely transparent." "And what happens if others threaten that peace?" asked the council speaker. Kim Tae-ho's expression remained calm, but his words carried the weight of absolute certainty. Then they will discover what Warlord Grextar learned today. Size does not matter. Numbers do not matter. Technology does not matter. What matters is being ready when innocent people need help. The galaxy was learning a lesson that would reshape everything. Sometimes the smallest armies cast the longest shadows because they strike exactly where and when they are least expected. 6 months after the Zephyrian incident, the galaxy had settled into a completely new reality that nobody had expected. The massive conference room of the Galactic Defense Initiative was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all trying to understand the new world that humanity had created. Admiral Kethvar of the Vorthak Empire looked uncomfortable in his ceremonial armor as he addressed the assembly. His scales had returned to their confident blue-green colors, but everyone could see the wariness in his ancient eyes that had not been there before. "The statistical evidence cannot be argued with," he reported to the gathered representatives. "Piracy incidents are down 73% across all monitored sectors. Unauthorized military incursions have decreased by 61%. Most importantly, civilian casualties from armed conflicts have dropped by 84%. The numbers were incredible, but the reason was simple and terrifying. No military commander in the galaxy wanted to risk waking up to find Green Berets already on their ship. The fear of human special forces had become more effective than entire battle fleets. General Mordak of the Hegemony Defense Forces activated a tactical display showing patrol routes across known space. The humans have not increased their military deployments by even a single soldier. They still field exactly 15,000 Special Forces troops. Yet their effect on galactic security has been completely transformative, finished the council. Speaker. The question we must answer today is simple. What happens next in this new galaxy? From across the chamber came voices representing thousands of different species and trillions of citizens. Some wanted to learn human tactical methods. Others wanted to hire human soldiers for their own protection. A few still insisted that overwhelming firepower was the only true security that could be trusted. But the most interesting voice came from a completely unexpected source. Former warlord Grextar himself, the massive alien now wearing simple civilian clothes instead of battle armor, stood with dignity despite his circumstances. He had been surprisingly cooperative since his capture, even helping to dismantle other criminal organizations that had threatened innocent people. "Honored beings," he said in a voice that carried across the silent chamber. "You ask what happens next in our galaxy. I can tell you because I have seen these humans up close and personal." A murmur of surprise ran through the chamber. The former pirate lord had become something nobody expected, a voice of reason and cooperation. "I spent 30 years of my life believing that strength came from size and weapons and fear. The humans taught me something I had forgotten even existed. Real strength comes from having a purpose worth fighting for." He gestured toward the human delegation. "These soldiers did not come to conquer my fleet. They came to protect innocent civilians. They did not come to destroy my ships and kill my crews. They came to save people I had been threatening." Ambassador Kim Tae-ho rose from his seat in the human section. "Former warlord Grextar has agreed to help us establish new trade security protocols throughout this sector. His knowledge of criminal networks and operations has been invaluable in protecting merchant vessels." A representative from the crystal hierarchies asked the question everyone was thinking. "But why would you help the people who captured you and destroyed your empire?" Grextar's scarred face showed something that might have been the first genuine smile he had worn in decades. "Because they showed me something I had forgotten existed in this galaxy: honor and mercy. When they could have killed me and all my crews, they chose capture instead. When they could have destroyed our ships, they chose to disable them. When they could have ruled through fear like I did, they chose to inspire respect and cooperation." Colonel Lee stepped forward now, wearing the insignia of a galactic military advisor. The Green Berets have always operated on one simple principle that guides everything we do. Win hearts and minds first. Force should always be the last option, never the first choice. From the Vorthak delegation came the question that everyone in the chamber was thinking. Colonel, will you teach other species your methods and training techniques? Lee exchanged glances with his team. Captain Park Min-ho, now promoted to major, nodded slightly. Lieutenant Park Soo-jin, wearing her new captain. Bars gave an encouraging thumbs up. Master Sergeant Kim Dong-woo and Sergeant Choi Bo-ram, both now serving as instructors, looked ready for the challenge ahead. We have already begun, Lee announced to the surprised assembly. The Galactic Special Operations Training Center will open next month on Kepler Station. We will teach anyone willing to learn that victory is not about having the biggest army. It is about using the right soldiers in the right way for the right reasons. The chamber erupted in excited discussions as species representatives realized what this announcement meant. Humans were not hoarding their tactical advantages like every other major power did. They were sharing their knowledge, creating a galaxy where smaller civilizations could defend themselves against larger predators. But there are strict conditions, Lee continued, raising his voice over the excited chatter. First, these techniques can only be used to protect civilians and maintain peace, never for conquest. Second, any species that uses human-trained special forces for aggression or oppression will find themselves facing the original Green Berets. Third, participation in the program is completely voluntary. Nobody is required to join. The Nexus collective energy beings pulsed with interested colors. Will you adapt your training methods to work with energy-based life forms like ourselves? We will modify our techniques to work with any physiology or technology level, confirmed Captain Park Soo-jin. The basic principles are universal even if the specific applications must be customized. From the smaller species, delegations came excited discussions and planning sessions. For the first time in galactic history, physical size would not automatically determine military capability. A small but well-trained force could stand against much larger aggressors and actually win. But the most important question came from the council speaker itself. Humans, what do you want in return for sharing this knowledge that could reshape galactic civilization? Ambassador Kim Tae-ho stood slowly with a serious expression that showed he understood the weight of this moment. We want peace throughout the galaxy. We want safety for all innocent civilians regardless of their species. We want a universe where conflicts are resolved through negotiation and cooperation rather than conquest and fear. He paused and smiled slightly. And we really want access to good pizza ingredients because we miss decent food out here among the stars. The last comment drew laughter from across the chamber, breaking the tension that had built during the formal discussions. It was such a perfectly human response, mixing the profound with the practical, the serious with the absurd. As the assembly dispersed, representatives from hundreds of species approached the human delegation with questions, requests, and offers of cooperation. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most powerful force is not the biggest weapon or the strongest shield. Sometimes real power comes from the willingness to use just enough force in exactly the right way for exactly the right reasons. The Galactic Council had stopped mocking humanity's tiny army. Instead, they were asking how they could build tiny armies of their own. Armies that could protect the innocent, deter the aggressive, and maintain peace through strength, tempered by wisdom and honor.